Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Lauren Cielo from Golden Rose Psychic Services.
And I'm Crystal Heinemann from Crystal Sunshine Psychic Services.
Welcome to the Metaphysical QA podcast,
where we're making metaphysics crystal clear
and golden delicious.
So Metaphysical Q&A is an audio and video podcast that we're really hoping and we're really shaping the idea that this is going to shift the way each human views their experiences that they're having here on Earth. Now, Lauren and I have a great favor to ask you. If you like our video podcast, would you please subscribe to our YouTube channel? And there's a little bell there that if you click on that, you'll get notified each time we drop a new podcast. And then, of course, if you're listening to this in your audio podcast, whether it's iTunes or Google Play or Spotify or iHeartRadio, would you please subscribe to us as well and rank us and review us? We want to really get this out to the world. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, you all know that Crystal and I are clairvoyant healers and teachers, and we created the Metaphysical Q&A podcast platform so that we can help explain all of the daily experiences we all have on Earth in easily understood metaphysical terms.
And viewers and listeners supply our questions. That's you. And we're so grateful. Oh my goodness, the stream of questions that we get in on a daily basis are so fabulous. And we're so blessed to have the best audience. Now, if you did submit a question and Lauren and I read that question on air, now we'll give you a free reading. So would you please visit our website at www.metaphysicalqa.com, and there'll be a get your free reading button. Would you click that? And one of us will be happy to read you.
Excellent. Well, Crystal, let's get on with the questions for this episode.
All right, Lauren. Well, I'm really excited for our podcast today because we've got three really, really great questions. And I think you're going to see an underlining theme to them, like always. Now, Chris in Rockford, Illinois, Chris asks, what is numerology? All right, moving on. Question number 2 comes from Anne in Springfield, Missouri. And Anne wants to know, what's the difference between numerology and astrology? And then, of course, question number 3 comes from Scott in Reno, Nevada. Hello, Scott. And Scott wants to know how you can use numerology to heal yourself. So I think you sort of can see that there's an underlying theme of numbers here and a lot of ologies. So how about we call this the Metaphysics of Numerology?
That sounds great. And I wonder, do we know any numerologists?
Well, we just happen to do. Yes, we do. We're so excited to bring forward, of course, one of our experts. He is a podcast host. He's an intuitive. He's a yogi. He's a numerologist. He teaches psychic development. He's a dear friend of ours, as well as the podcast here, Alexander Kriech.
Excellent choice. Now, Alex has been a visionary in the world of spirituality, numerology, clairvoyance, everything that Crystal just named. But he's got his start when he was a college freshman. He's from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and he does readings and teachings for clients and students all over the world. So I'm so grateful to have Alex joining us.
All right, Alex. Well, welcome to our show. Thanks for coming. We're so blessed to have you today.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, before we get into the questions posed by our listeners, I wonder if you could tell us, how did you personally get into numerology and how do you use it in your life?
That's a good question. I really kind of accidentally stumbled on it. Accidentally. Looking back was very synchronistic. I was a freshman in college and was basically really depressed. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had like a couple different major choices, and I really, frankly, was not a very good student, and I just kind of stumbled upon it. I've always had an interest in metaphysics and spirituality since a very young age, since as far back as I can remember. I was interrogating my grandma about her near-death experience and wanted to know what that was like. I was like 7, and we had a whole section of the library that was, all ghosts and UFOs, and that kind of kept me afloat, I guess, and really kind of sparked my interest in it. It just has never waned. And then about age 19, I just accidentally found it, and I found a really good teacher, and I had a reading for the first time, and I was hooked after she told me about myself at the very deepest level without, me giving her any details other than my birthday and my full name. The way I use it in my life, for me personally, I generally use it just for planning purposes. For example, I'm in a 5-month this month. That's communication, media, freedom, and I'm talking to you guys. And so that's very much about what that's about.
Perfect.
And yeah, so it's, like this is a month. I'm like, oh, it's a 5-month. You probably want to go on a trip, or maybe even like 5 is the energy of a hot fling. I'm not saying I'm having that, but if I were, like, this would be the month to do it in. And then, I use it for, if I'm, going to go on a date or something, I'm going to get their birthday and be like, well, let's see if our energy is a little bit compatible, or let's see what cycle they're in. Maybe they're in kind of a bummer downer cycle and may not want to go out with a date with this person in a 9 months or something like that. So that's generally how I use it in my life.
So Alex, before you go out on a date, for the first time, do you actually ask them for their birth date?
Yeah, I'm pretty straight up. I used to be very covert. I'm like, oh, what's your birthday? No reason. And now I just tell them what I do. And I'm like, listen, I'm a clairvoyant and numerologist. So if you're not down with that, maybe we shouldn't go out. But also give me your birth date. And if they're into it, then I'll ask them their full name at birth, which is very important. And I promise that I'm not going to steal their identity or do anything crazy with that.
I love that it's all cards on the table. And I find it so interesting that you went through some sort of depression stage for you to really come out and find your spirituality. I know Dr. Lauren and I talk about that a lot on Metaphysical Q&A, how we all sort of have to visit like the dark night of the soul to sort of find, what our soul is really seeking. So I'm so excited to get on with today. So Alex, with that, are you ready to impart your numerology wisdom on us? And our
yes, absolutely.
Great. All right. So Alex and Lauren, Chris in Rockford, Illinois wants to know, what is numerology?
Okay, good question. We should probably start there, I think. So numerology is really just a study of the energy of names and dates. And more specifically, what it's mostly used for is we're looking at the energy of a person. So in a reading, I look at someone's full name at birth, like on their birth certificate and their birthday. That's really, to me, that is like your soul's original blueprint. It's like your soul's code, your talents and abilities, why you're here, different blocks and challenges that your soul wants to work through. And then also we can look at future forecasts with that as well. And we can also look at, if you're coming to me and say you're age 30, I'm going to look at years previously. I will tell you about the energy during those years. Like, did this kind of happen this year? Did this happen this year? So that's generally what numerology is.
So I've got a question about that. So, what happens if like a woman gets married and she's got a married name now? Would she get her chart done on the married name or 2 charts?
I take the married name into consideration because that does kind of alter your energy field, because I do look at the name that you use now as well. However, the most important name is ultimately your birth name. That never changes. That's like your core energy. But a woman's married name does really change some stuff up in your chart. And hopefully it helps. Sometimes I have seen it where I'm like, okay, you really have an abundance of, let's say, the letter T in your name because of your married name now. The letter T is a 2. You everything energetically kind of really, you really want it to be balanced. I might suggest maybe dropping the married name in some cases, like we don't want, because 2 energy is very sensitive. You don't want to have too much of this super sensitive energy in your name. But oftentimes, our soul wants to have certain experiences too. So that might be her soul's desire to have all of that T energy kind of flowing through her auric field to create certain experiences.
Great question. Yeah.
That's interesting. I have one more question. I'm sorry, Crystal. I
know. I'm like.
So you said something so interesting that you go back, into their past and ask them, did this kind of stuff happen to you at these certain times? So what that reminds me of is when I'm reading someone, and I of course, I know you both know that we read in 2 worlds. where we're reading what those contracts say on the astral and then the energy field of the person here on earth. And it's really easy to tell by reading someone, the way they react to what you're saying, how connected they are to their higher self. So if I'm reading stuff from their higher selves and I tell them and they're like, oh no, that's not right at all, then I know that they're totally not in connection with their higher self. So when you said that, I wonder, are certain people more in line with their numerology versus maybe somebody that you said, hey, well, did this happen to you? And they're like, no, nothing like that happened at all. What do you say about that?
I would say that when I'm looking at prior years, or even looking kind of more into the future, the numbers are very clear and very practical. If I'm looking at someone and they have had a couple years of a lot of really strong 8 energy. 8 is career, money. Sometimes can be overcoming something or struggling through something as well. Because the numbers, they are spiritual, but they are practical, you are kind of just describing the weather pattern. It is, most of the time, people really do resonate to what I'm saying, because it is like, this is this kind of energy and you are experiencing that. It may have created a few different experiences, but in general, people most of the time are going to resonate to what I'm saying with that. However, you do get more spiritually inclined, connecting to higher self clients that will say, like, I totally experience that, and here's the lesson that it gave me. Like, well, I'll get that quality with these people. But oftentimes the numbers are just pretty straight up. They are very clear. It's describing what is happening on a third dimensional level, like just raining outside, that kind of thing, So I hope that answers your question.
So you really can't go into resistance to your numbers?
Not really. If there is more challenging energy, then certainly. However, most of the time it's just pretty cut and dry. And like, I am a very nurturing person, but I am also pretty blunt. So when people are getting a reading with me, I'm like, okay, so here's what you need to know. Here's what's coming up, and here's what your soul wants you to know as well. And also I will add too that, I'm a trained clairvoyant. I'm very psychic. So that information is flowing through that reading as well.
Now, I know that Dr. Lauren has been taking a peek at good old Chris over there. We haven't forgotten about you, but our crown chakras are bursting with Alex's information. Now, I've got something to ponder, and I don't know if you would have an answer for this, and I don't know if I'm really looking at one, but I know I'm the only one here in this group that has been married and then since divorced. And now I know that I didn't have an attachment to my maiden name my entire life until I got married. And once I got married, I felt like, oh my gosh, there's no way I could take on that name, because I don't want my identity to change. And so I never changed my maiden name to my married name. Of course, on records and stuff, we put my married name. But I wonder for people that have gotten married. Now, I know the moment I got married, I felt like I completely changed as a person. And so anyone that says, oh, no, it's not, everything's the same. I mean, hats off to them. But I've spoken to a lot of women and a lot of men that really their life changes when they do enter into a contract like that. And I guess it's so interesting and fascinating to me that once you do change your name, and of course, I guess, I kind of did, because I did go by my married name, but just not legally, that your vibration completely shifts and, your numbers completely shift. And I wonder if that is why, or one of the reasons why people feel that their entire identity shifts once they enter into a marriage, because they really are shifting their numbers, shifting their vibration. It's very fascinating. And I felt like once I divorced, that I found myself again. So I feel like maybe that's your next book, Alex, once you get married and try it out.
Yeah, I'll definitely be looking at what my name would change to if I want to change that at all. So there's some numbers I could add. I could always add more 3, which is kind of like a sexy, creative energy. So I always add more.
Interesting.
I love this. 3 is sexy. There you go.
3s everywhere. Pretty dripping with these.
All right. Well, I was peeking at Chris, and Chris, thanks for your question. I hope that Alex answered it to your so you will understand. But what I'm looking at is a past life image of you, and I'm really, really bad at world history. But what it reminds me of, you're an old man. You have the wearing some kind of ceremonial robe, and there's these characters on it written on the front of what you're wearing. And the characters, I almost feel it's something like Hebrew or something like that. But the inscriptions that are written on your chest seem to have some kind of, I don't know, I'm just going to say magical powers or something like that, or that's what was thought of before. So when I ask your higher self to tell me about you and numerology, it goes back to that life. So I don't really know. Let me just watch the image for a while. Yeah, it just seems like it's setting energy for you. I don't think it's, again, maybe like Egyptian spells, with hieroglyphs or something like that, and even Reiki with its symbols. So your connection to ancient numerology or whatever that could be goes all the way back to some kind of like ancient Hebrew something or other. So no wonder you're interested in it. And I wonder, maybe Alex, what is the history of numerology? Does it go back that far?
Numerology is pretty ancient. There are lots of different types of numerology. The numerology that I do is considered to be Pythagorean numerology. So supposedly Pythagoras had an interest in numbers that was beyond just mathematics. He supposedly considered that numbers all had mystical spiritual qualities of numbers. They all had energy. And the numerology that I practice was really kind of developed and refined in the early 1900s, and they based their theories and their research upon Pythagoras's sort of attitude around numbers. But there's Chinese numerology. There's Chaldean. There's also something called Chaldean numerology. It was like basically if you go back to Greece, ancient Egypt perhaps as well, it does go back far. People have been wondering about the energy of numbers and symbols for a very long time.
Excellent. Well, hopefully that answers question number 1. Let's move on to number 2. All right, Alex. Anne asks, what's the difference between numerology and astrology?
Good question. Astrology and numerology are going to be very similar in the information that you can delineate from looking at the charts. They're considered like sister or cousin, sciences, or really metaphysical divination tools is what I consider them. Astrology, you're going to be using the planets and stars, and you're going to use your exact birth time, birth date, and birthplace with astrology. With numerology, you're going to be just looking at your full name at birth and your birthday. That's really the main differences. But a lot of the information that you get from the two different sciences correlate with each other with that same person. But I think knowledge is power. I think knowing both is pretty important. However, I will say that the one thing I have noticed, I do feel like a numerology reading gets right to the heart of the matter a little bit more quickly than with astrology, in my experience. So,
excellent.
Excellent. Well, Anne, of course, I was taking a peek at you, and you showed me something so fascinating. And I wish that everyone would, open up to their, third eye, like, Alex, Lauren, and myself, because this world that we see is so fascinating. And what you showed me as Alex was talking, and I was bringing forward your energy, is I saw essentially an image of the world, right, of Mother Earth, the globe, and you're sort of walking right above her, sort of like walking on Mother Earth as, almost like a ball spinning, but you had complete balance. And off to your left was astrology, and all that you showed me, all of the symbols of astrology, not just, the astrological, monthly signs, you were showing me Chiron, all this really neat stuff over on astrology. So imagine this, you're right in the middle. Mother Earth is underneath you and you really are walking over her, right? Like, and not meaning walking over her like you're stomping on her. It's really like you are essentially, like we say, one foot, on Earth and one foot on the astral. That's really essentially what you're showing me. And then off to the left, all of this like stream of astrological signs, and they're coming into your energy field. And then off to the right, you've got all of these numbers that are coming into your energy field as well. But they're very separate for you. And I tried to sort of move them together, like sort of move astrology and numerology to sort of like walk a parallel line. And I couldn't do it in your space. So you, my friend, you do keep them very separate. And but then I also noticed that astrology is a really good base for you, but really I think that numerology sort of like sings to your heart. So if you're looking to get some sort of maybe a session or something, I think maybe you want to dabble in numerology a little bit more. I hope that helps. So all right, on to our third question. All right, Alex, so on to our last question, of course, certainly not least. Now, Scott wants to know, Alex, how can I use numerology to heal myself?
Okay. For me, numerology I healed myself with numerology when I was 19 when I found it. That's because I was completely validated top to bottom on a soul level. Knowing who you are is half the battle. And in most of my readings, the biggest healing that occurs is like, I've always felt like that. And now I have a way to describe it. Or I've always been really different from my family members because I'm like this kind of energy. If you're in a family full of, say, 8s, all this 8 energy, a lot of the time it's very career, money, ambition, success. And if you're the lone 7 among all those 8s, the 7 is kind of anti all of that. It's very much about reflection, meditation, spirituality, doesn't really want much to do with the material world. So knowing who you are and what you are here to do is really half the battle. As you two know, when you do, say, a rose reading for someone, you're really saying hello to their energy. And I mean, the biggest healing you can give someone is saying hello to their soul. And that's really what numerology is all about. And also, that's kind of a bonus. A lot of the times when I'm talking about certain years, certain experiences that they were having in their life, they're like, oh my God, it's like all of this energy is kind of conspiring for your soul to have this experience. And oftentimes that is a difficult experience. It's like, maybe I was supposed to have that for a reason so I could meet this person or have this kind of lesson. And looking at that, that's like, that was written into your soul contract. There's really no getting out of that one. And that also, I feel like, gives people a really big healing as well. Like, oh, that was kind of for a reason. So that's my answer to that.
Excellent. Well, Scott, I took a peek at you and I asked your higher self how you could use numerology. And it really is kind of what Alex alluded to is when you come up to big decisions, big life decisions, should I take this job? Should I, get engaged? Should I break off an engagement or whatever? That's what your higher self says would be beneficial for you to, I guess maybe the way people use astrology to, again, kind of see the path ahead of them. So let me see what else I get on this. Hang on. Oh, interesting. Scott, I think you would actually like to learn to do numerology and do readings. That's what I just picked up. So maybe you'll get into Alex's class and he'll show you how to do readings for other people as well as yourself. So I hope that helps you. So, Alex, thank you so much for sharing all of your numerology information with our listeners. Now, what projects are you working on personally?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Super appreciate it. It's always a delight to get to talk about what I love, and not just ramble numbers at people, which I'll force you. And like, you're in a 7-year, you need to listen to me. So, I'm working on a couple things. First of all, I'm in the very early stages of developing an app. I don't want to give away the name because I don't want anyone stealing my idea. But basically, it's going to give you a little mini forecast for your year, month, and every day. So look for that. The best way to get in touch with me or at least stay informed is to sign up for my newsletter. It's on my website. It's at www.akriechintuitive.com. I'll spell that because it's my first initial and last name. So Intuitive.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram as well. I'm also going to be offering a class in the springtime. It's called Your Challenge Number. And that's going to be a webinar style class that I'll be offering. And you're going to learn about really kind of your biggest blocks and challenges that's in your numerology chart. It's very easy to figure that out, and I'll actually figure it out for you. And then we'll talk about what that means. So that's what I have coming down the pipeline. And then also for the viewers of this program, you do get 25% off a numerology reading with me. Just use the coupon code MQA in the coupon box when booking an hour numerology reading. And again, my website is akriechintuitive.com.
Excellent. Well, before we close out, I have to say that the app that you are creating, I knew nothing about it. And I actually read that in your space right before you mentioned it. I saw that I got a text from you, some sort of notification on my phone telling me what number I was running. And I was going to text you after our podcast today, like, hey, this is a great idea for you. And then that's what, and then of course, that's what you spoke about. And I do want to encourage our audience to please book a session with Alex, because and to back up what he was saying about how numerology can heal you. I've had several sessions with Alex, and it is a very much like soul affirmation to sort of affirm where you are, where you've been, and where you're going. And so it's so healing on all levels. So I highly encourage our viewers to take advantage of your amazing offering. So thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you very much, you two, for having me on. I really appreciate it, of course.
Well, Crystal, do you think we've done it again?
Well, Lauren, I do believe we've done it yet again, of course, with the help of our numerologist expert, Alex Kriech. We've made metaphysics crystal clear.
And golden delicious.
Excellent, everyone. We're so grateful for you. And we would kindly like to ask you to please subscribe to our podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, would you please subscribe to our channel? And then also there's a little bell on there. Would you press that to receive notifications? And then if you're listening to this on any audio platform like iTunes or Google Play, we really, really would be so grateful if you could subscribe, subscribe to us, rank us, review us. Would be so grateful. And of course, if you heard your question here, if one of us answered it, would you please visit our website at metaphysicalqa.com? And there's a free reading button. Would you please click on that and redeem your free reading with one of us? And then if you're interested in my personal work, of course, my name is Crystal Heinemann, and my website is crystalsunshinepsychicservices.com. And of course, I'm a clairvoyant healer, reader, and teacher.
Excellent. Check me out on the web, goldenrosepsychic.com and laurencielo.com. Now, Alex, will you give us your sites again, please?
Yes, of course. www.akriechintuitive.com. It's AKRIECH intuitive.com, and it's /MQA. So there's a special offer for anyone watching this program who would like a reading with me. You get it for 25% off. So just akriechintuitive.com /MQA. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as well under Alexander Kriech Intuitive.
Excellent. Until next episode, everyone, we'll call that a healing.
Please hang up and try again.